Where are the dolphins at? I got full sail up right now and we're moving at, I think, close to 6 knots or just over. The wind's actually supposed to die off here in the next hour or so, so we'll see what happens. And then I end up in this spot where there's not a whole lot of wind, just a blob of no wind I'm coming into here soon, potentially. And then it comes straight out of the east, which could get kind of annoying because I'll have to sail directly north, I'm thinking. And it could be some wind against current action, and we'll see how it goes. But then as the sun sets, the wind's supposed to clock around and come out of the south, and that'll make it really easy to go east. I'm really wishing my drone wouldn't have went overboard. This would have been perfect conditions for flying it. I guess now might be an okay time to talk about what I ended up doing here instead of installing my Genoa track. So some people might have noticed when I installed this guy down here, I only put like a foot-long track. This thing used to be like 10 feet long and it ran along the entire bulwark that I repaired in my videos where I was fixing everything. This used to leak really bad. I had to take the whole thing apart, take all the teak off of it, cut the whole thing open. It was like a whole process. It's resealed up with epoxy now and all new glass. So all this is being rebuilt and it's nice and strong. But because of that, I didn't want to run a track along the whole thing. So what I've done here is used some low friction rings. There's 2 larger ones, and that just runs through the head sail sheet and then run it back and forth between itself, so it kind of acts as a few different purchases. This is spliced onto here. Down here I attached it to where the hawse pipe is, and it just runs back aft to the cockpit, and then all I have to do is haul down on that line, and that kind of sheets down on the Genoa. It allows me to adjust the head sail sheet while it's under tension, so it actually works a lot better than the track plan, or it works better than having that Genoa track car run along anyways, and it's less holes in the boat. It's just an all-around better system, and I'm surprised at how simple it is to work. I thought I might have needed maybe a winch, but I can haul in on that line very easily even when there's lots of wind. So all in all, it was much better than having that track, and puts way less holes in the bulwark, which I was totally trying to avoid, because after all of that work I didn't want any more ways for water to be able to get in there. I'm very happy with it so far. I can feel the wind starting to die off now. I think in the next hour or 2 we're going to be completely becalmed. Very close to becalmed. Every single time I change course here to try to go upwind, I start getting AIS alarms. Last time I had a cargo ship coming, I went to cut upwind a little bit higher so I can start pointing more over to the Florida Keys, and as soon as I did that, AIS alarm. So I had to bear away again, let them pass in front of me. Now there's a new ship coming up to potentially cross paths with me. So I just tried to tighten into the wind a little more. Probably not the best choice, because now I'm just going to slow down a whole lot. But at least maybe this way he can pass in front of me and it won't be a problem. This stuff just happens all the time. It doesn't make any sense to me how you can't, you won't see ships for like days or hours, and then the only ones that show up on the AIS are on like a potential collision course with you. So in this case, I don't know how, yeah, you can't see this super well, but that guy right by this arrow was cutting over this way, and then that's me right there, and I was pointing a little bit further north, so I was saying I was going to hit him. So I turned harder to starboard, and now I've slowed down probably almost 2 knots, but now he should be able to just go in front of me, and then I can bear away again once he passes. Like I was saying there earlier, I had to change course to try to avoid this guy, and it's tough when the wind's this low. So had I not been able to kind of turn up wind like I did and point myself slightly higher, I probably would have had to radio him and ask him to deviate course slightly in order to get around me, because I don't really have a lot of maneuverability at the moment in these light winds. And he's a big boat. I think the AIS says he's 300 meters long. It's a pretty big boat. 40 meters wide, 300 meters long. And as I said earlier, the wind was going to die off, and it has started to die off. The seas are fairly calm. I'm probably just going to go down and nap while the wind's low like this, and hopefully another big ship like that doesn't cross my path. We are heading slowly directly east now. There's kind of some weird seas that are making it so that the sails can't stay filled, but there is enough wind to sail slowly right now. I would like to be pointing more about 60 degrees, and we're pointing 90 degrees at the moment. And it's very odd because the wind, the weather says that I should have southeast winds, which should make it quite easy for me to point to 60 degrees, which is northeast. But we actually have southwest winds, which is very strange, and they came in quite a bit earlier than what was predicted. So I'm not complaining. I'm at least moving. I wasn't expecting to be moving until after sunset today. So at least we're making some way east. Hopefully as the sun sets, the wind starts coming around more out of the southeast, and I can start pointing a little more north, because we need to start going north a little bit. I'm expecting in about an hour or two, we should have a little more wind and be pointing where we need to go. We're moving along pretty quickly. We're in the Gulf Stream, heading east, northeast, across to Florida, and things are going really well. It was quite smooth out the whole night, and we made really good time. I might shake out a reef here soon, because the wind is supposed to continue to die off, and then we might have low winds just for a few hours. Hopefully they'll come back tonight, and we might be making it into Florida by tomorrow afternoon or the day after in the morning. There's a sailboat here off to the starboard side that I think I'm actually surprisingly going faster than. They might be trying to cut up a little higher into the wind, slowing them down, but they didn't look like a small boat, so I'm surprised that I'm going quicker than them, because I'm definitely passing them. I thought they were coming towards me, but now that the sun's starting to come up, I can see that they're going the same direction as me. Seems like after 3 days out here, it doesn't really matter if it's 2 weeks or a month. As long as there's enough food and water and supplies on board, I feel like I could just keep going. But it really makes you feel that way when it's this nice out in the mornings. I guess what I'm saying is that when you're out doing ocean crossings, after a few days, there becomes a rhythm to the day. The patterns to everyday life kind of just fade away, and you just kind of go about your day eating and sleeping and just managing the boat. And that's really all that matters out here. Last night I started to smell land. I've been away from land for, 5 days? Not too long, but 5 days now. And since the wind is coming off of Cuba, I could smell kind of a smoky smell. So maybe there's some fires burning over in Cuba, but it was very strong and I can still kind of smell it even now. It's a beautiful morning. The Gulf Stream's amazing. Sometimes it just is like a blessing and you're just flying along it, making crazy good speed, and if the wind changes, the Gulf Stream can be a nightmare. But right now, it's definitely a blessing. Cheers. I just had a nice shower, the first shower of this trip. It was very needed, but I'm low on shower water, so I was kind of avoiding them. There's a little bird outside, and it's not a seabird, so he's pretty far from land. I don't know why he's out here, but I'm gonna try to get him a little bit of water. It's right there. Does anybody know what kind of bird that is? I'm not a bird person, but I know it's not a seabird, so he's pretty far from land. I think I'm still like 50 nautical miles from land. Before I left Rio Dulce, I wasn't able to fill my holding tanks with drinking water, so I've just been using them for the toilet and dishes. So my drinking water is all down here, and it's kind of a pain to fill up. My bird friend is still here. We're currently sailing east-southeast, kind of along the Gulf Stream, because the wind is out of the east right now, but the Gulf Stream's pushing northeast. So I don't know how to explain this, but I'm sailing pretty much southeast at the moment, away from the Florida Keys, but because the Gulf Stream's going northeast, I'm kind of more east-southeast, if that makes sense. In 3 or so hours, I'm gonna tack and start heading back towards the Florida Keys. The reason for this is because I kind of have to think pretty far in advance when sailing without the engine. If I had just pointed directly for the Keys at this time, the wind came out of the east, I would have been pointing mostly north and ended up close to the dry Tortugas. Now, if I ended up in the dry Tortugas later on tomorrow, the wind is out of the east-southeast, maybe a little more east, and I wouldn't have the right wind angle to be able to sail up the Keys. So I'm doing this to kind of get a little more south and a little farther east without going north at all. That way, when the wind does shift more out of the southeast, I can kind of point on a beam reach, maybe even a little close hauled. I feel bad for my little bird friend. When I tack here, he's gonna get knocked off the boat. As you can hear, my AIS alarm is going off. That's this guy. What it does is tell me when I'm gonna be intersecting with a cargo ship or any type of vessel that has AIS. If I'm gonna cross paths within 2 miles of another boat, it'll give me an alarm, which is what it's doing. In this specific situation, I've got 7 other cargo ships all around here, and I'm pointing high up into the wind, so I can't really make a course correction to avoid this guy, and I don't really want to ask him to turn to port because I'm pretty much would be asking him to kind of point in the direction of all of these other cargo ships. I wasn't gonna tack for like 3 or so hours, but I think I'm just gonna do a tack right now. Probably reef the sail a little bit because it's going to need to be reefed anyway, and then just wait for him to pass me and then switch back onto this tack and wait until later to tack back again. So let's go tack the boat. Now I feel a little bad because our little friend there, you can see him, he's been hanging out with me for a few hours. When I tack here, I'm hoping he's able to avoid anything that happens with the sails and can land back on the boat comfortably. Sorry, dude. Hit by the sail. And land on the back. On the hydro bay. Where'd our little friend go? Hopefully he's on solar arch behind me. Now we'll go to target list. Gull Holman, which is that guy's the one that we're going to intersect with. And now it says the CPA is 8 miles rather than like 0.5 is what it was showing before. It's really hard to tell what's going on there, but all of the other boats are going east and the one that was gonna intersect with me was going west. So I'm just gonna head north for a little bit, avoid him, and then I'll tack back in maybe half hour or so. Oh, did I startle him? Watch out! Can you see him there? All right, now we're in an easier position to reef. So at some point here, I'll put a first reef in the main. The GoPro froze up. I just put a reef in the main. And did a whole talk about harnessing up while reefing. And turns out the GoPro had froze, so I didn't get any of that recorded. But the main is now reefed. we're waiting for that cargo ship to pass, and then eventually we'll tack back. Our little bird friend is still hanging out on the inner forestay. But yeah, essentially what I was saying is I usually don't wear a harness, and I might get some flack for that all the time, but it's pretty much mainly because I don't have a dedicated system set up on the boat for harnessing myself off. And because of that, in a lot of ways, it's less safe for me to hook up to a harness and just be clipping to random things. It'll make things clunky and awkward and more difficult for me to move through the boat. But before I do an Atlantic crossing or anything extreme where I'm going to be in, well, I was just in pretty heavy stuff, but I need to set something up so that clipping in is a lot more functional. I just went to roll in a little bit of the Genoa, and the bird, I thought it left because it's been getting kind of crazy out, and he's in my cockpit right now. Seemed to be a little less worried of me, which makes me a little more worried for him. I'm going to try to get him some water. So far the Gulf Stream is not disappointing. The weather showed 15 to 20 knots. We're probably seeing closer to 20 to even 30 knots. I just put a second reef in the main. We're pretty much, we have the sails shortened pretty much as we had during the 30 knot blow on the first day of this passage. And it's kind of crappy because we're in the Gulf Stream, so that's pushing me east, and the wind's coming out of the east at the moment. So the seas are getting fairly steep. Not an ideal situation, but I think most of this wind is coming from this big thunderstorm that's northeast of me. And once that goes farther north, I'm thinking the wind will die off. We'll find out. My little bird friend is still here, and at least we've got a full moon. I may just roll the jib in all the way and heave to. The only crappy thing is I'm kind of in an area where there can sometimes be cargo ships, and if I'm hove to, I'm kind of a sitting duck. Yeah, I'm gonna go up top and heave. There goes my phone. I'm gonna go up top and heave to. That should slow the boat down a lot. The boat feels a lot more comfortable once you heave to, and a lot safer. It's almost like I don't know, it feels like the wind's kind of starting to die off, but it's really hard to know. It sucks because pointing too far north. It would have been better to heave to on the other tack, because then I probably would have just been drifting more east and not getting closer to land, which I'm trying to avoid. That tiny little spot right there, that's the biggest cargo ship in the world. And it's about 1.5 miles off my starboard side. That thing is 365 meters long.